Striking from the shadows is this week's Full Build Friday, and for it, I'm fulfilling a request that came about over on Reddit. I've built a few ninjas from the Kincow order at this point, and this time we're doing the bad boy of the band, a character made by and for 14-year-olds, Zed, the Master of Shadows.
The unseen blade is the deadliest.
If you could drop a like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it, but let's not waste any more time on that. We've got build goals to discuss. As hinted, Zed was originally taken in by the Kincow Order and raised as a contemporary of Shen. But, in the face of the Noxian invasion, he abandoned the balance the Order was dedicated to in favor of founding the more militant and zealous Order of Shadow. He's a melee assassin that fights using a pair of bladed gauntlets and the occasional shadowy shuriken. He deals extra damage to low health targets through his Contempt for the Weak passive, and then, as mentioned, can launch an oversized shuriken with Razor Shuriken, which deals damage in a line. With Living Shadow, he can create a shadowy duplicate of himself, which copies his Razor Shuriken and Shadow Slash abilities. He can also activate this ability again to swap places with a shadow. Speaking of Shadow Slash, this ability simply causes him to deal damage in an area around him and slow affected enemies. His ultimate is Death Mark, which creates a living shadow while he briefly disappears and marks a target. He then stores a portion of damage dealt to the target by himself and his shadow, which he then detonates after a delay for even greater damage. This ninja is truer to the text than Shen, but has a focus on manifesting and manipulating shadows, even able to create crepuscular copies of himself that will mimic his moves, striking out with slashing blades and whirling shurikens as he takes out vulnerable foes. I don't personally get the appeal of this edgelord, but with his focus on shadows and darkness, he's going to use the Fetchling, or Kayal, ancestry. His harnessing of these dark forces have led him down the path of a deep Fetchling, to grant him resistance against negative damage. Or cold if that's more pertinent to your campaign. He also uses shadow blending to gain a reaction that makes it harder to hit him while he's dwelling in the darkness. He closes out his ancestry options here with the Fetchling boost to dexterity, but a free boost to strength, as, unfortunately, he needs it for his choice of weapons. We're going to make use of the Perfection Seeker background, just like we did for Shen. These two had a shared background before Zed split, and this means that he'll become trained in acrobatics and warfare lore, referencing the Noxian invasion. This comes with the Catfall skill feat while providing him with an initial boost to dexterity, and then a free boost to his strength, as he is still a nimble warrior. Continuing our beautiful symmetry with Zed's foil, he is built as a monk. Once more, just like Shen. And just like his best buddy, he'll also be a strength-based monk. As a monk, he gets the powerful fist and flurry of blows features, but Zed doesn't exactly do a lot of fist fighting. He's got those fancy old blades of his, and to that end, he'll use the monastic weaponry class feat, letting him use his monk weapons for monk feats and features, such as the aforementioned flurry of blows. For his choice of weapon, I'd go for the Katar or tri-bladed Katar. I personally took the Katar because it has the agile trait, and that will actually come up later in the design a tiny bit. Monks don't get a lot of skills, so we have to spend them sparingly here. Zed will become trained in athletics, performance, stealth, and thievery, making him a master ninja. His final set of ability boosts will enhance his strength, dexterity, wisdom, and charisma. He has a split between physical and mental matters, given both his skill and capability as an assassin, and his mastery over shadow magic. Razor Shuriken involves throwing one oversized shuriken, but I think Zed still gets some benefit out of the Shooting Star's stance at 2nd level, which will let him use those shurikens with his abilities as a monk. We then get Quick Jump as a skill feat to make him more nimble, letting him leap in upon an enemy, deliver a quick flurry of blades, and then bounce back out, making it seem like he was never even there. With their 3rd level, monks gain access to Mystic Strikes, to mystify their fists, as well as incredible movement, granting a scaling speed buff. Our more traditional ninja takes his skill increase as stealth, and then also takes Fleet for his general feat to stick with that speed seen elsewhere in this level. Starting our 4th level feats is Chi spells, and honestly you could go either way here. Chi Rush might better fit the ghosting effect granted by his Death Mark, whereas Inner Upheaval might match the mighty and massive Razor Shuriken he launches. For his skill feat, you've gotta take Shadow Mark for the Master of Shadow, letting him more capably stalk an assassination target. Any look at 5th level has to start with our ability boosts, which will go to Strength, Dexterity, Wisdom, and Charisma. He becomes an expert in Perception, and with his weapons, gaining access to their crit specialization effects as well. For archetype reasons, he becomes an expert in Performance, and then grabs Extinguished Light from his Ancestry feats. This is a nifty little feature, letting him snuff out lights with his shadows and granting him the opportunity to deal death in dire darkness. I mentioned Inner Upheaval earlier as a way to enhance damage, but another option is 1-inch Punch at 6th level, this being the monk sort of take on Vicious Swing, but without the extra multiple attack penalty increase. As a skill feat, he uses Slippery Prey, as he is armed with a number of escape tools such as disappearing during Deathmark or jumping to his Living Shadow. Following up on that avoidance in Zed's kit, he uses his Path to Perfection at 7th level to increase his reflex to Master, while also gaining weapon specialization. Of course, his skill increase will go to Stealth so that he can finally master that. Then, we'll take Incredible Initiative, hopefully acting first so that he can
strike hard, defend, protect, and fade into the night.
Finally, with 8th level, we get a feat that I've had in mind for a hot minute, the Shadow Dancer Dedication. This will give Zed the mastery over shadow magic that he seeks, but for now it affords him greater dark vision, and a solid bonus on stealth checks made within areas of darkness. Speaking of sneaking, he uses Swift Sneak for his skill feat, so that he can move at his full speed, a nifty little 45 feet at this point, while sneaking, instead of only going at half speed. 9th level means that Zed becomes an expert monk, also enhancing his spell DCs, and receives Metal Strikes. He takes a skill increase to Acrobatics, but then I feel like he is still a little lacking in skills. Fetchling lore as his ancestry feat helps him out there, making him train in Shadow Plane lore as well as Occultism and Intimidation, because he totally didn't have enough edginess already equipped. I wish I could tell you we're doing something new with ability boosts at 10th level, but we're sticking to increases to Strength, Dexterity, Wisdom, and Charisma. This investment in Charisma is because the Shadow Magic feat, which he gets here, defines that the shadow spells gained from this archetype are Charisma based, and while he doesn't need to worry about DCs or anything for the shadow jump that he picks up from this, it will be useful down the line. On the topic of magic and mysticism, it's worth keeping in mind that Zed lives in a world full of fantastical figures. Aside from sight, he needs foil senses as a skill feat to account for the myriad of other ways that people and creatures of his world might detect him. We continue down the path of perfection with 11th level, taking this increase to his Fortitude, as I think somebody that fell that quickly to the side of darkness maybe shouldn't have a higher will save. He also starts increasing Thievery, getting that up to Expert along with the other skills. Toughness is his general feat here because it is, like the name says, just generally good, and because we haven't been able to invest in Constitution all that much. Our Charisma investment really starts paying off come 12th level with Shadow Illusion, allowing Zed to manifest a shadowy individual or object. This is going to be how we cover his Living Shadow, which can make spell attacks to lash out at enemies just like the Illusory Creature spell. I don't know if the Shadow can make ranged strikes off of my reading of either spells, but this is a great step forward. As for his skill feat, I want to use Dirty Trick. We've started increasing Thievery a little bit, and Zed is the type of character that will do anything to win. It's why he dug up all his spooky shadow magic, and this is just a reflection of that aspect. Echoing Zed's role as the Master of Shadows, level 13 sees him become a master with his weapons, his unarmored defense, and his Thievery skill. He also masters them by virtue of gaining Shadow's Assault for a casting of Shadow Blast. I had hoped that one of the areas it creates could be an emanation, but that's literally the one type it doesn't make, so we're still struggling a little bit when it comes to his Shadow Slash. Though it could maybe cast a burst on his Illusory Shadow for that idea. Further building out of Shadow Dancer is Shadow Sneak Attack at 14th level, which simply adds Sneak Attack to Zed's arsenal, giving him a bit of extra damage against off-guard targets. Some of that occultism training lets Zed become schooled in secrets, given his involvement with a number of secret orders. I think technically even the Kincow order was supposed to be a secret one. I can't keep up with all the lore rewrites. We shift gears a tiny bit at 15th level, with ability boost going to Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Charisma. That increase to his intelligence will make him trained in Deception, and he'll spend his actual skill increase on Stealth to become a legend there. He also becomes a legend in Reflex saves through his third path to perfection, and gets into Greater Weapon Specialization. His general feat for the level will be Feather Step, letting him move even through cluttered terrain with ease. By taking Master Chi spells at 16th level, Zed can gain access to Touch of Death, which is honestly a great way to represent his death mark. He performs the initial strike, can pummel or debuff the enemies for a bit, and then detonate the damage with a single action for a real juicy burst. He will of course then also use Legendary Sneak as his skill feat, letting him disappear from plain sight, kind of like what he does when he first activates Death Mark. With 17th level, we get into Adamantine Strikes, Graceful Legend, which increases his armor, class, DC, and spells, and a skill increase that makes him a master in Acrobatics. Skirt the Light as his final ancestry feat feels more in line with the character than Pierce the Light, but both are good options here, and the latter may honestly fit better for your campaign. Stepping out of Shadow Dancer for a sec, we take the Assassin Dedication at 18th level, which has the very appropriately named Mark for Death action, allowing Zed to better hunt his mark and deal a teensy bit of extra damage to them, since he already has Sneak Attack. We'll take Kip up as his skill feat, taking advantage of his Master Acrobatics skill, and letting him hop back up on his feet immediately after getting knocked off of them. Zed reaches his perfected form at 19th level, so that his first strike is always at least a 10. He also becomes a legend in Thievery and takes Die Hard as his general feat, since League is a game where characters continue to come back to life, making him seem pretty hard to kill. Closing out this build, Zed takes ability boost to Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom. Yet another int boost makes him train in Society. Then, rather than taking a Monk capstone feat, he picks up Assassinate from, you're not going to believe this, his Assassin Dedication. This gives him a strike that deals 6d6 precision damage on a basic Fortitude save, with the enemy straight up dying on a critical failure. Then, since Zed is a leader of his order, we'll take Quiet Allies to help him lead his trainees and followers into raids that they conduct in the night. If you want to bring this build into a free Archetype game, our Shadow Shrouded Slayer can start off with the Assassin Dedication, taking up options such as Surprise Attack and Sneak Attacker earlier. He then does a deep dive into the dark of Shadow Dancer with picks such as Spring from the Shadows, while also taking up some extra monk feats. You could also look at the Dual Weapon Warrior Dedication to maybe combo his Flurry of Blows and double slice his savage enemies all around him, calling to mind his Shadow Slash. Our Edgelord Incarnate has claimed dominion over the shadows, but has our build really captured that? Well, let's take a look at what we've made in review. Zed, the Master of Shadows, is a deep fetchling monk with a Perfection Seeker background, reflecting his history with Shen and their training in the balance-obsessed Kin-Kao Order. His use of monastic weaponry and the Shooting Star stance covers his ability to use his Bladed Gauntlets and Shurikens, while an Assassin Dedication makes him the killer he's designed to be. Contempt for the Weak causes him to deal extra damage to low health targets, which is hard to accomplish, but we do have Shadow Sneak Attacker to deal extra damage to vulnerable targets, to at least match it in spirit. He combos Shooting Star stance with 1-inch punch to cover his Razor Shuriken, or can unleash the line of his Shadow's Assault. The Shadow Dancer lets him create a living shadow through his Shadow Illusion Focus spell, which can lash out at enemies, while Shadow Jump allows him to dash or teleport to it. Shadow Slash was a little harder to capture, unfortunately. The best way to do it is just make strikes at all enemies around you, and Flurry of Blows letting him pack more strikes into a single action does help with that. Finally, for his Death Mark Ultimate, the best option is actually not going to be the Assassin's Mark for Death, but the Monk's Touch of Death, a strike that he can trigger at a later point for fantastic damage. Shrouded in shadows, this Stalking Slayer summons simulacrums, slings shurikens, and savagely shreds saboteurs into scraps. Let me know what you think of it and what other sorts of builds you'd like to see in a comment. You can check out item suggestions and character sheets for this build, and other builds I've done, over on the Monster Monday blog, which is linked below along with the Twitter and Discord. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic Friday.
We offer you a choice. Die now, or die later.